I used to believe that cameras don't lie, that whatever they capture is truth, cold, objective, unquestionable. People can forget, memories can twist, fear can exaggerate, but cameras only show what's there. Or at least that's what I believed before I took the night shift as a CCTV security guard, before I realized that sometimes cameras don't just watch, sometimes they notice. I wasn't desperate for the job. I wasn't curious either. It was just convenient. Decent pay, quiet hours, no heavy labor. Sit in a room, watch screens, log anything unusual. Most people thought it sounded boring. To me, boring sounded safe, and safety was all I wanted at that point in my life. The building I worked in was massive, a mixed-use complex with offices, storage floors, underground parking, and restricted areas most employees never saw. During the day, it was loud and crowded. At night, it transformed into something else entirely. Empty hallways, automatic lights that clicked on for no one, elevators that moved on their own schedule, and somewhere deep inside it all, a small room filled with monitors. That was where I spent my nights. My shift started at midnight. Every night, I walked into the control room, shut the door behind me, and the outside world disappeared. The room was always dim, lit mostly by the glow of the screens. 15 monitors lined the wall, each showing a different angle of the building. Hallways, stairwells, parking levels, storage rooms, places no one should be in after hours. At first, everything felt normal, too normal even. Hours would pass with nothing but empty frames and silent footage. I learned the rhythm of the building, the way lights flickered in certain corridors, the slight delay on older cameras, the graininess that came and went. I told myself that if something ever happened, I'd notice immediately. That confidence didn't last long. The first strange thing wasn't dramatic, it wasn't frightening. It was subtle enough that I almost ignored it. Almost. It was my third week on the job. Around 2:40 a.m., I noticed movement on one of the screens, camera 12, covering a narrow service hallway on the 4th floor. The motion detector indicator blinked briefly. I leaned forward expecting to see a rat or a loose door swinging. But the hallway was empty. No movement, no shadows, nothing. I frowned, checked the timestamp, then shrugged it off. Old system, faulty sensor. These things happened. Still, something about it lingered in my mind longer than it should have. The next night, it happened again. Same camera, same time window, motion alert, then nothing. I switched angles, zoomed in, rewound the footage. The playback showed the alert triggering, but the hallway remained empty the entire time. No flicker, no distortion, just nothing. That was the first time I felt uneasy. Over the following nights, camera 12 became a pattern, always after 2 a.m., always brief, always empty. I started paying closer attention to that hallway, memorizing every detail, the scuffed floor tiles, the emergency exit sign at the far end, the shadow near the ceiling vent that never moved. Then, one night, something changed. I was watching the screens when camera 12 flickered, not the usual static, but a quick distortion, like the image folded in on itself for a split second. When it stabilized, my breath caught. There was something there. At the far end of the hallway, barely visible, stood a shape, not clear enough to identify, but dark enough to contrast against the pale walls. It didn't move, it didn't flicker, it just stood there. I leaned closer to the monitor, heart pounding, telling myself it was just a trick of the light, a shadow, a glitch, anything but what it looked like. I switched to the adjacent camera covering the same area from a different angle. Nothing. The shape was gone. I felt a chill run through me, but I forced myself to calm down. Cameras lie sometimes, I told myself, or rather they malfunction. I logged the incident as a visual glitch and moved on. But that night, sleep didn't come easily. From then on, I watched camera 12 more than the others. It became a habit, almost an obsession. And slowly, the thing on the screen began to change. The shape started appearing closer.
Not every night, not consistently, but enough that I noticed. Each time it stood a little nearer to the camera, still indistinct, still silent, but closer, like it was learning where to stand. I tried to capture it. I saved footage, took screenshots. Every time I reviewed them later, the shape was gone. The files showed empty hallways, just like before. It was as if whatever I saw existed only while I was watching. That thought unsettled me more than anything else. One night, during a particularly quiet shift, I leaned back in my chair and rubbed my eyes. Fatigue had set in. The hum of the equipment felt louder than usual. I glanced back at the monitors and froze. On camera 12, the shape was no longer at the far end of the hallway. It was halfway down. For the first time, I could make out its outline clearly. It was tall, too tall. Its proportions were wrong. Long limbs, narrow frame. The edges of it seemed blurred, like it wasn't fully locked into the image. It didn't sway or breathe. It just stood there, facing the camera, facing me. My mouth went dry. I checked the timestamp, live feed, no delay. My hands hovered over the controls, unsure whether to zoom in or look away. Something inside me warned me that getting a closer look wasn't a good idea. Then it did something unexpected. It tilted its head. The movement was slow, curious, almost thoughtful, like it was trying to understand me as much as I was trying to understand it. I felt my heartbeat slow, an unnatural calm settling over me. Fear should have made me panic. Instead, I felt observed, evaluated. I don't know how long I stared at that screen. Seconds stretched, time losing meaning. Then the image flickered. The hallway was empty again. I pushed my chair back so hard it nearly tipped over. I stood up, pacing the room, trying to ground myself. This wasn't possible. Stress, exhaustion, imagination, that was the explanation. It had to be. Still, I couldn't sit back down. I grabbed the radio and called the on-site patrol guard, asking him to check the fourth-floor service hallway. He sounded annoyed, but agreed. I watched camera 12 as he walked into frame, his flashlight sweeping the walls. Nothing. No sign of anything unusual. He reported back, irritated, and I apologized. As he left the hallway, I noticed something that made my stomach twist. As he passed under the camera, his shadow stretched unnaturally long behind him, longer than it should have been. For just a moment, it seemed to lag behind his movements. Then it snapped back to normal. I didn't mention it. The rest of the shift passed without incident, but the sense of being watched never left. When morning came, I left the building exhausted, convinced I just needed rest. But that night, as I lay in bed, one thought kept repeating in my mind. Cameras are meant to record everything, so why did this thing only appear when I was watching? And why did it feel like it knew that I was there? By the time sleep finally took me, I had a feeling, quiet, heavy, unavoidable, that whatever I had seen wasn't done with me yet, and that the next time it appeared, it wouldn't stay on the screen.
After that night, I told myself I wouldn't look for it anymore. Whatever I had seen on camera 12, whether it was exhaustion, stress, or a malfunction, I decided to treat it like it never happened. I focused on my job, logged normal activity, kept my eyes moving across all the screens instead of fixating on one. But the problem with being a CCTV guard is this: watching is the job. And once you've seen something you can't explain, every empty hallway feels less empty than before. The next few nights were quiet. Too quiet. Camera 12 stayed normal. No flickers, no shapes, no strange shadows. Slowly, my nerves began to settle. I even felt embarrassed for how shaken I'd been. I started to believe that my mind had filled in gaps that weren't really there. Then, on the fifth night, it came back. This time, it didn't wait until after 2 a.m. I noticed it just after midnight. A presence on the screen. Not a sudden appearance, not a flicker. It was already there when I looked, standing so close to the camera that part of its form was cut off by the frame. I could see its torso and shoulders clearly now,
darker than the surrounding shadows, like the absence of light rather than darkness itself. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. The shape wasn't facing the camera. It was turned slightly to the side, as if it had been watching something else, and had just paused. A strange thought crossed my mind then, one I didn't want to accept. The idea that this thing wasn't appearing randomly, that it was timing itself, waiting for moments when my attention drifted, then making sure it was already there when I looked back. I forced myself to switch screens. Camera 8, camera 5, camera 3, anything but 12. My hands trembled as I pretended to check logs. I told myself that if I didn't acknowledge it, it would go away. When I finally looked back at camera 12, my heart sank. It had turned. Now it was facing the lens completely. Where a face should have been, there was distortion. Not emptiness, not blur. It was as if the image couldn't decide what it was looking at. The center of its head seemed to ripple slightly, like heat rising from asphalt. I couldn't make out eyes, but I felt eye contact all the same. That was the moment I understood something important. This wasn't just a visual anomaly. It was aware. A low ringing filled my ears. I realized it wasn't coming from the room. It was inside my head. The longer I stared, the louder it became. Panic crept in slowly, wrapping around my chest. I reached for the radio again, but my fingers froze halfway. Something in me knew calling for help wouldn't change anything. Instead, I did something I hadn't done before. I spoke. "Who's there?" I whispered, feeling foolish the moment the words left my mouth. The room remained silent. The screens hummed softly. On camera 12, the figure didn't move. Then, slowly, it lifted one arm. The motion was wrong, jerky, delayed, like the frame rate dropped just for that movement. Its hand rose and pressed flat against the camera lens. The screen went black. All of camera 12's feed cut out at once. I jumped back, nearly knocking my chair over. My pulse roared in my ears as I stared at the dead screen. The system showed no error, no signal loss warning, just a black feed, like the camera had been covered. I sat there for what felt like hours, afraid to look away, afraid to look at anything else. Eventually, the screen flickered, and the hallway returned. Empty. No sign of damage, no figure, no explanation. I reported the incident at the end of my shift, keeping the details vague. Camera malfunction, I wrote. Temporary blackout. Maintenance checked it the next day and found nothing wrong. From that point on, the disturbances spread. It wasn't just camera 12 anymore. I started noticing small inconsistencies across other feeds, shadows that didn't match the lighting, reflections in glass that lagged behind the movement they mirrored, hallway cameras where the perspective felt off, like the space was deeper than it should be, and always, subtly, the sense that something was repositioning itself, learning the building, learning the system, learning me. One night, while reviewing recorded footage from earlier in the shift, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. In the reflection of a dark window on camera 6, I could see the control room. My control room. The angle was impossible. The camera wasn't positioned anywhere near that window, yet there it was, rows of glowing monitors, my chair, and me sitting at the desk. But there was something else in the reflection. Behind my chair. A tall shape standing far too close. I spun around instantly. The room was empty. My breathing turned shallow as I replayed the footage. Frame by frame, I watched myself sit there, unaware, and behind me, the shape stood perfectly still, its outline clearer than I'd ever seen it before. It didn't appear on any other camera, only in that reflection, only when I wasn't looking. From that moment on, the fear followed me beyond the screens. I began feeling watched even when I wasn't on duty. At home, I caught myself glancing at dark corners, at reflective surfaces. Mirrors made me uneasy. Windows at night felt like invitations. Sleep became fragmented. When I did dream, I dreamed of screens, endless rows of them, all showing different versions of the same hallway. In every dream, the figure was closer than before. One night, near the end of my shift, something changed completely. I noticed movement in the control room camera feed, the one meant to monitor the room when guards stepped out. The screen showed my chair, empty, just as it should have been. Then the chair moved. It rotated slightly, slow and deliberate, as if someone had nudged it. I was still sitting in it. I looked down, heart racing, then back up at the screen. The chair in the feed was empty, but it was turning anyway. A cold realization washed over me. The cameras weren't just showing different places, they were showing different moments, different layers of the same space, and something was moving between them. I stood up, backing away from the desk. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, to run, to get out of the building while I still could. But my feet felt heavy, rooted to the floor. The control room door creaked softly. I hadn't touched it. I stared at it, waiting for it to open wider. It didn't. Instead, the sound came again, this time from behind me. A faint electronic hum, the sound of a camera adjusting focus. Slowly, I turned my head toward the monitors. Every single screen now showed the same image, the control room, from different angles, and in the center of every frame was me, standing there, watching. Except one screen. On that one, I wasn't alone. Behind me, closer than ever, stood the figure, its head tilted, just like before. Its presence felt heavier now, more defined, as if it had finally crossed some invisible line. That was the moment I understood the truth I had been avoiding. I wasn't just watching it anymore. I was being recorded, and whatever lived inside those cameras, no longer satisfied with being seen. It wanted to step out of the frame, and it was getting very close.
I don't remember leaving the control room. One moment I was standing there, surrounded by my own image on dozens of screens, and the next I was outside, sitting on the cold concrete steps near the parking gate. Dawn light was breaking over the horizon, pale and unreal. My hands were shaking so badly I had to sit on them to make them stop. My shift had ended, at least according to my watch. I checked the time again, convinced it was wrong. 8 hours had passed, an entire night gone. But I couldn't remember any of it after that moment when the screens changed. I told myself it was shock. The mind protects itself by erasing things it can't process. That explanation followed me home like a weak comfort, fragile but necessary. I didn't go back to work the next night. I called in sick. Then I called again the following day and quit without explanation. Management didn't argue. They didn't even sound surprised. They just thanked me and said they'd already scheduled a replacement. That should have been the end of it. But some things don't stay inside buildings. For the first few days, everything felt normal, too normal. My apartment was quiet, no strange reflections, no shadows moving where they shouldn't. I slept with the lights off again. I even laughed once, catching myself feeling foolish for how deeply it had all affected me. Then I noticed the cameras. Not security cameras, everyday ones. Traffic cameras on street corners, ATM cameras, doorbells, phones. Red dots blinking quietly in the dark. Once you've trained yourself to watch screens, you never really stop. I began avoiding eye contact with them, the same way people avoid mirrors when they don't like what they see. Still, the feeling followed me, that sense of alignment. Like if I stood in the wrong place at the wrong time, something would lock onto me again. The dreams returned. Not nightmares, recordings. In them, I watched myself from above, from corners, from ceilings.
always slightly delayed, always from places a camera shouldn't be able to reach. In every dream, I felt the same presence I'd felt in the control room, closer now, familiar, patient. One morning, I woke up to a notification sound. My phone. I hadn't installed any new apps, I hadn't given any permissions, but there it was, a new folder labeled simply Archive. Inside were video files, hundreds of them, each one named with a date and time, dates that matched my night shifts. My throat tightened as I tapped the first file. The footage opened to a familiar view, the factory hallway from camera 12. The timestamp confirmed it. This was from the first night I'd noticed the shape. Only this time, the footage didn't stop where I remembered it ending. The file continued. I watched as the shadow moved closer to the lens, its form stabilizing frame by frame. I watched it raise its arm. Then, the camera angle changed. Suddenly, the footage wasn't from the hallway anymore. It was from behind me. I dropped the phone. I didn't need to watch the rest to know what I'd see. The files weren't recordings from the factory. They were recordings of me, of my attention, of every moment I had focused on the screens. That was when the final truth settled in. The thing in the cameras wasn't tied to the building. It wasn't tied to the equipment. It was tied to the act of watching. It existed in the space between observer and observed. Most people glance, look away, move on, but I had watched. Night after night, hour after hour. I had given it shape, given it continuity, given it permission. The videos kept updating. Every time I passed a reflective surface, a new file appeared. Every time I paused to stare at a dark window, another timestamp was added. The more I tried to ignore it, the faster the archive grew. Until one night, I found a file dated in the future, tomorrow's date. The time matched exactly 2:17 a.m. Hands trembling, I played it. The video showed my apartment, my living room, lights off, empty. Then, slowly, the camera angle shifted, like someone turning their head. The view stopped at my bedroom door. I didn't sleep that night. At 2:16 a.m., I sat on my bed, heart pounding, phone clutched in my hand. The room felt heavy, like the air had thickened. Every electronic device around me hummed softly, synchronized. At 2:17, the phone vibrated. A new file appeared. This one wasn't video. It was a live feed. My own face stared back at me from the screen, pale, wide-eyed, frozen. Behind me, in the darkness, the shape stood clearly now, not distorted, not flickering, complete. I understood then what it wanted. Not my body, not my mind, my role. Someone has to watch. Cameras don't mean anything without eyes. Systems don't exist without attention. The thing that lived between the frames needed continuity, and I had been trying to walk away. I felt a strange calm settle over me. The fear didn't disappear, but it softened, like it had reached its final form. I turned slowly and faced the darkness behind me. "I won't do it," I said out loud, my voice steady. The presence didn't move. The phone screen changed. Text appeared. Just one line. Then who will? That question has never stopped echoing. I don't know how long I sat there after that. When morning came, the phone was dead. The archive was gone. Every file erased. But the feeling remained. I don't work night shifts anymore. I don't take jobs with screens. I keep my windows covered. I avoid places with too many cameras. Still, sometimes when I'm alone and the room is quiet, I feel it again, that alignment, that sense of being framed, and I realize something chilling. It doesn't need me the way it used to, because there are more cameras now, more watchers, more people staring into screens late at night, waiting for something to happen, and eventually something always does. So if you ever notice a reflection that lingers too long, if a camera seems to follow you instead of the other way around, if you feel like a screen is aware of your attention, stop watching. Because once something notices you watching, it never forgets, and it's always recording.